Hi, and welcome to our interview today with three-time author, three-time author, Anna Ellis. Thanks for being with me today, Anna.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Anna, if you already don't know, is the author of three wonderful books. The first one is Panacea Genesis, book one. Panacea Exodus, book two. And the new one that just came out this year, Panacea Omega, book three, concluding the series. First thing first. All right. So I have my three books here, and you will notice the spine is not the same for all three books. Is it just because mine was a preview copy, or did you also, so is the real book, does it look like the other two?
Well, yes, let me show you. But you
Good.
did get an advanced release copy. I
I
think
did.
that's a proof because I believe it has the Amazon little line around it. What it says is
Yep.
a proof.
It says not for sale,
I
not for sale.
appreciate you reading and commenting on, but you will see that in the final version,
Oh, good. All three of them
the
match.
files match up.
Excellent. Thank you. Because readers hate that. I always, or there'll be like a different size or the font changes and it looks bad on the shelf.
Oh,
And
well, you know
everything
what,
should match.
Melissa? I didn't realize I had not gotten you a final copy of the first book, so I will make sure you get one because I don't want it to look out on your shelf. I mean,
Oh,
that's part of the nice thing about having such an amazing cover artist, and I'd like to talk about him for a little bit, but
uh-huh.
is that they look supposed to, normally it looks really good when they're all on the shelf together. So I'm a little sad that that you don't get the full effect on yours. So we'll make sure you get one.
Oh, thanks. Well, I figured it was coming for Christmas, so I I was waiting till Christmas, and then if I didn't get one in my Christmas sock.
Right. Well, we are going to do a Christmas sale, so
Excellent.
maybe, but yeah, you might get one in your sock, so maybe you shouldn't buy one just yet.
Okay, I'll hold off. But you do have a beautiful cover on all three of them. I mean, an amazing artist. So who was the
Yes.
artist and how did you meet them?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Oh, sure. Who was the artist of your three covers and how did you meet them?
Oh, so his name is Jeff Brown. I'm not sure where I came across him. I was researching a whole bunch of different cover options. One was making my own, and I came up with some that I thought were nice. And then the people I shared it with are like, no, no, you need to go somewhere else. So then I started looking into, like there's cover art like sites out there where there's a whole bunch of covers that are already made. Just somebody had a good idea and they made a cover, and then you can, choose them for your book. And then, there's other professional cover artists out there. And as I was researching them, once again, I'm sharing these like with my family. And some of them will be like, oh, I like this one. Some of them will be like, oh, I like that one. But the only one they all agreed on was Jeff Brown. So Jeff Brown did my covers. He's an amazing artist. I really love them. And he recently did a special edition of the Three Body Problem that I think is just outstandingly beautiful. So if you want a special edition, you should go get it now because Jeff did an amazing cover for them. But what I wanted to tell you is that I recently was at the World Con in Glasgow, and Jeff was there. So we got to meet for the first time because we've always met online. And the cool thing was he had this like kind of silvery pen. And so he signed my books right there. So, normally you get books signed by the author, but I have the book signed by the cover artist. And it was also kind of nice too, because then when people would buy my books, I would tell them, hey, you can go over to the Broken Binding booth and and Jeff will sign your books for you too.
That's wonderful because Broken Binding is a British publisher, I guess, because an online bookstore, but they only sell their own books that they do covers for and special editions, right?
That sounds about right. I never quite figured out exactly like where they were from. but I know that they do these special editions. They also had him do a special edition for the Dragonbone chair.
Nice.
So they, take well-known books and they make special editions out of them.
Well, I mean, the Three Body Problem is like a huge international bestseller. So,
It is. And if you look at it, his cover's beautiful. So yeah, you should take a look at it when you get a
look,
chance.
oh, very nice. So you've now published 3 books.
Amazing,
Amazing.
surprisingly
And
enough.
in how many years from when you published? Because you
Okay,
started
so
them a
the
long
first
time ago,
one
right?
published in 2022.
Mhm.
And then, I mean, that would be this one right here. And then this one came out. So this one came out in May 2022, and I got this one out in December of that same year. And then the third book took me a little bit longer, so it finally released in June of this year, 2024. And I was hoping to get them out a little more quickly. What I did before I published the first one was I wrote most of all 3 books. I wrote probably about 2/3 of the last book, and then I had an idea where I wanted it to go, but I wasn't quite sure of the details, of the specifics of actually how I was going to get there. So that's why, this one, all I needed to do was edit it, fix some things up afterwards. And then this one, the editing took a little bit longer, but it was really that ending. I probably spent like half a year just thinking about the ending and trying to make sure that I got it right. Because there were a couple things that I was hoping to do with the ending. And I would say, okay, well, I'll have it in this way, and then, but then that wasn't quite right because it didn't fulfill one of my goals. And then I was like, okay, well, then I'll have it work like this other way. But then there was something kind of wrong with that. So eventually I felt like I got all the pieces into place. And yeah, that's why it took a little bit longer for that one to release.
Sure. George R. R. Martin,
Yes.
Father of Dragons, says that authors are usually gardeners. They sort of plant the seeds as they go along in their stories, or they're architects where they know everything down to the fine-tuned detail before they even start out. So would you think you're more of a gardener planting things and, pulling the weeds or the storylines that don't work as you're going along from book 1 to book 3?
That's a cool analogy, but I feel like I don't 100% fall into any. So all of my books, I had an outline before I started, but the outline really changes a lot as I was working on it. It was a little bit like I knew where I was going because I wrote like most of the entire trilogy as well as had an idea of the ending before I published any of it. But that ending really took a lot of tilling and tending or whatever to get it to where I wanted it to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure that I can really say I'm one or the other. Kind of go back and forth as I need to.
Sure. Plus, you killed off those whales, so they must have been a really bad little weed. Yes, ma'am.
There are
The
no
whales.
whales in
The
anything.
whales. I want whales in the next book.
Okay. Well, and I keep it, and my husband's like, you got to put dragons in your next book. So I'm gonna have an idea for a book I like to write. So then I'm like, well, then can I work dragons into the next book? Maybe my
Dragons,
main
and
character needs to have a pet dragon, and wouldn't that be adorable?
it totally would.
I
And
feel
plus,
like
dragons
whales
are.
are a little more challenging, though, considering that they exist in the middle of the ocean. And so unless I could have like any deep underwater ocean scenes, I feel like you may not get your whales. Sorry, Melissa. I
Although
feel like I
space
need to
whales,
adjust your expectations right now, and that there
told.
may not be whales in my next book.
Well, if you do a sci-fi one, you have to have space whales then, because space whales have now turned up in Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who. They are a thing.
Well, and don't forget about the whale in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
That's true. So, I
Um,
mean,
and I do like to, like, put in like little references, little call outs, maybe, to other sci-fi that I really like. And Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was one of my, favorite books growing up. So,
I
but
don't
I
remember
still don't think
42.
those two big whales.
Did you put in 42? as a reference in any of the books?
Um, so originally I have Area 52, and I went back and forth on whether it should be Area 42, which is what I originally called it, that call out to 42, or whether it should be Area 52 as in like the next one after
Mhm.
Area 51.
Okay.
And in the end, I liked that kind of mystery associated with Area 51 more, so that's why it became Area 52.
Sure. So would you do another series again?
I would, yeah. I mean, I have to feel inspired. It's a lot of work. I mean, there's over 1,000 pages between all three books.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you asked me how long it was from when I published the first one. But even longer was from when, yeah, right, when I started working on the first one. I mean, I really started working on it like in 2016, even though I had the idea initially like in 2010. But it took like 6 years to get the first book out, and 8 years to really publish a whole trilogy. So I'm not opposed to the idea. I think for my next book, I might like to do something standalone, just to give people options.
Mhm.
Because this to really appreciate this story. I mean, each one exists by itself, and each one has an ending, but to really get the full impact of the story, you have to read the entire trilogy. And some people don't want to commit to 1,000 pages. So, it might be nice to do just like a kind of standalone. I don't know. I
Why
have
don't
some
you?
ideas I'm thinking about, but I'm not quite sure.
Okay. So the ideas are sort of percolating still.
They are percolating. I mean, I can let me see if I can kind of give you a preview. So one thing that I'm working on right now that I think will probably be a giveaway is I wrote a short story in high school that I still really like. It's definitely young adult because I was a young adult when I wrote it, and it's interesting to me looking back because there was no intention on my part to put young adult themes in there, but yet it so clearly ended up having like a lot of young adult themes in it. I'm not sure if other people will like it quite as much as I do, but I'm going to put that out there probably as a freebie.
Okay.
It's in decent shape, so I still I've done some work on it over the decades, last 2 years since I graduated from high school. Um, and so I that one should be close to being ready. Then I thought it would be really fun, and this is just kind of a wouldn't it be fun sort of idea. I don't really have an idea of what the plot would be, but I thought it would be fun to write like a middle grade novel, what that's like a little bit of a spy novel, like um, the kid that's middle school kid or whatever has to figure out all these things and be kind of secretive and sneak around and things like that. I
Mhm.
thought that would be fun. And then I've started working on. I haven't made a lot of progress on it. I've written like the first couple chapters of one that's it's in like an alternate reality, so it's very similar to our world, but these people from basically our reality get pulled into another reality, and they have to figure out how to exist there because it's similar to our current world but yet different, and then they're trying to figure out how to get home. That's the
Okay.
one where I think she's going to have a dragon pet because you know what? It's an alternate universe. I mean, so you know what? I'm sure there's some alternate universe out there where people had dragons as pets.
Exactly.
There's an infinite number, so it must be there.
Definitely.
And then the other one, which I have kind of started writing down ideas for and pulling things in because it's related to these books, would be in these books. There's a very low tech area. It's people that were tired of advanced technology. They felt like it was too intrusive or too taking over that was too, like they felt like it was out of control. So they create this very low tech area. This is the area 52 we were talking about.
Mhm.
And they've been this area 52 has been in existence for about 80 years, but it's very isolated. Because one of the things I realized was that it's difficult to exist in our world today if you don't have advanced technology. Um, so like, because every place wants you to like send a code to your smartphone or, download their app or um you can't check into your like plane ticket if you don't have the technology. So they end up isolating themselves and creating like this world where they only use free smartphone technology. And what I'm working on, and I think it might end up being kind of like novella length, is the story of creating that world. That it's in the books, there's only one of the founders is still alive. Her name is Petra. She's a little bit of a character. She's 80 or 101 depending on how you count, and she could be a little bit acerbic. She doesn't tolerate fools very easily. And so she's a bit of a character. And so I think kind of telling her story and how she ended up becoming involved in creating this world would be interesting.
Oh, definitely. She was one of my favorite characters, and one of my favorite characters that you didn't kill off, I might add.
I would get what? No.
As soon as I said, "Don't kill this person off," I'm sure you were like, "They're dead now."
Good.
Me.
Yeah, in the future, you should probably just not tell me. Or the characters you don't like, you could be like, yeah, I really like that character. It's a shame if they got killed off. Like, yeah.
If you do a Kickstarter for the dragon one, you should, for one of the prizes, name a dragon.
Ooh,
Wouldn't
I
that be
like
cool?
that would be cool. But, what if somebody gets that prize and then they're like, okay, I'm naming your dragon. I can't think of a bad name right now, but there's got to be some bad ones out there.
Well, I mean, you could put
And
limits around it, so
so probably until I was much older than I care to admit, I slept with my really big stuffed dragon. And his name was Lolly.
Oh,
But I do like that idea of letting somebody name the dragon. So that
exactly.
might happen. And then I'm counting for you to bid on that because you probably come up with a fun name.
Totally. I'll start thinking now. So now that you've completed all three of your books in this series, is there something that you wish you would have known at the end that you wish you would have known at the beginning?
Well, that's the reason I wrote most of the books before I published the first one.
Mhm,
So that I didn't, well, two reasons. One, so that I didn't end up George R. Martining.
mhm.
I wanted people to have confidence that if they started book one, that book three would eventually come out. And then the other reason was so that if there was something in the third book that I really wanted to plant that seed in the first book, then I could have. And there wasn't there, I think there might have been a couple things in the end that I thought, oh, I think I might have changed this one or, this thing or some other thing. Um, but not really huge. One thing though that like they have their liquid data storage, um, and they call it the soup. And
Mhm.
then by the time I got to the end, like finished writing book three, I decided I wanted that capitalized and I had put it in lowercase in the first books. And so I actually went back and changed all of that.
So would
So
you ever
that's why you
do
need another copy of the first book too, so you can have one where it's capitalized.
exactly. So
But
would you
but
ever
anything
do
like that was all pretty small stuff.
okay. So you wouldn't release like a director's cut of things that you've totally changed now that you're done and you've been thinking.
Um, I don't know that there's an enough.
Okay.
I've changed a number of small things, but I also don't think it would be interesting enough for people to really want to read it.
Okay. All right. So, as a young author, you went to Worldcon this year because I know that you've done little conferences around the East Coast and stuff, and but little conferences compared to Worldcon is like day and night, wouldn't you say? And
Well, and not in terms of size.
okay.
Worldcon was not quite as big as I kind of imagined in my head. I think
Mhm.
because it's international, but there were and it may be a little bit more expensive in terms of some cons. There were, I think I read afterwards, like 7,000 or maybe 5,000 people there. But that doesn't really compare. Like I go to Awesome Con each year, and Awesome Con typically has like 60 or 70,000 people.
Oh wow.
So size wise, it was not the largest con that I've been to. Um, One thing that did surprise me was how many other booksellers were there in the vendors hall. The
Hmm.
vendors wasn't huge, but and but most of I feel like the other vendors were booksellers too, which is good and bad because there's a lot of book lovers at Worldcon. So, that was kind of nice, big market to draw from. But then people are walking by my table with like stacks of books this high or like, backpacks that are pulling them over and they're so heavy with books. And they're
Hmm.
like, yeah, your book sounds interesting, but I already spent all my money. So there are advantages and disadvantages.
Did you see any famous authors at Worldcon?
I did.
Ooh, who'd you see?
So I ran into John Scalzi on our first day. My sister asked him for directions to registration. And then, we're talking to him and I realized who was, and I looked down his name tag and I'm like, John Scalzi, I just read his book. And then I got like all nervous. I was like, I just read your book. And then I saw Mary Robin Wald from afar. I
Okay.
got and then there was somebody else who came up to my table and started, asking me about my books, and then he got a phone call, so and then he walked away. But the vendor next to me, she was like, "Oh, do you know who that is?" And I was like, "No." And she's like, "It's so and so." And actually, I'm sorry, I already forgot. So that's not a very fun anecdote. Um, but then, well, and also, as long as we're mentioning famous people, there was a time that I went to get a photo signed by Will Wheaton for you.
That's what I was
And
thinking
I
of,
was
and I
like,
was gonna ask you that question. I'm like, I remember that story, how you, like, shoved your book at him.
exactly. Because I was like, okay, I'm going to talk to him. Should I give him a copy of my book? And I was like, I don't know if he can accept gifts. Like, what if he ends up with like this whole like big, truckload of gifts or whatever, or he might end up with like 30 gifts. And then what do you do with all those? Are they all going to be interesting to you? But anyway, I was like, I'm going to take him a copy of my book. But then I was so nervous. Yeah, I just like shoved it to him. And well, I did ask him first if he could take gifts. And he's like, yeah, people give me gifts all the time. I was like, here you go. And I shoved it at him and ran away. So I didn't tell him anything about the book or try to sell it or anything like that. And then I like followed him closely on social media for a while just in case he like posted about how he read this amazing, book with some dystopian and cyberpunk vibes to it
Mhm.
that he was given at Awesome Con, but he never did post.
So, as a new author, you've done a lot of PR and advertising. You've done podcasts, a couple for this book and a couple for the other ones, and you've gone to conventions and had booths. What other marketing techniques have you tried? Ones that worked, ones that didn't work, any of the ones that you would recommend for new authors just starting out?
So advertising is really tough because there's a lot of books out there and it's tough to get people's attention or kind of break through all of that. And people have gotten to the point where they tend to tune out a lot of advertising also. For me, where I sell most of my books is at conventions.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, because a lot of conventions have a table fee, I don't always make enough to earn back that table fee, but I enjoy it. I get interactions with people. And then, part of that table fee, you get entrance to the convention too. So I'm not having to pay separately for my entrance fee. So that's what's been most successful for me too. And I'm
Mhm.
starting to get some repeat sales of people who have bought, what the first book or for the first and the second book. And, just last month, somebody came back to buy the third book. So that makes me happy. Because what I really want more than anything is for people to read the books and enjoy them. So,
Mhm.
knowing that somebody liked it enough at least to go ahead and keep on reading, that really makes me happy. I haven't had a ton of success with paid advertising, but another thing is since I finished the third book, it's just like I had COVID for a couple weeks, first time, finally caught up with me. I was really busy at the day job, so really right now is when I'm kind of starting to think about like how I'm going to market it because finally I have the entire series to market.
Mhm.
So I'm preparing this holiday promotion, which I will now take advantage of this moment to mention, where this is the starting book, that one. The ebook is already on sale for 99 cents. Yes, that one. Thank you. The ebook for that one is still the same price. But what I'm going to do, and you'd asked me about this, I haven't had a chance to do it yet, but I'm going to create it's people call it a box set. Sometimes it's not technically a box set. It's really like all three books rolled into one large book. That then you market it kind of like a box set.
Like
So
a
I'm going to
bundle.
create one of those for people that
Mhm.
they know that if they start it, they know they want to read the whole thing. They'll get it at at a discount too. And then I'm going to put the bundle of all three books on sale on my website too.
Oh, excellent.
And do some more marketing of the first book being at a discount on the ebook on things like BookBub. So I did
Mhm.
do a BookBub new release feature when this book first initially launched, and that was pretty effective. Probably got like 30 or 35 people purchasing the book from that. And eventually, I'd like to do another BookBub feature. But in the meantime, I think I'll try now that the from what I've heard, people on BookBub are very price sensitive. So now that the first book is discounted to 99 cents for the ebook, I'm hoping to get more people picking it up and reading through all three books.
Sure. If they order a book from your website, can they order both the hardcover, paperback, ebook?
The ebook is not available on my website, but the hardcover and paperback are. They're
Mhm.
signed and they also come with color copies of the character art. So, for example, in this one, Maya is the main character of the third book, um, and I have some. Uh, did I say cover art? I meant character art, and let me get to the page with her in it. So, in the book, you have this picture of her, and she's holding a cube there. In the future, in the books, which said about 100 years in the future, many people have implanted chips. So they
Mhm.
can access virtual reality or email or whatever through the chip in their brain. And because of this, some people also live all their time in virtual reality, and they're in they just have like warehouses that take care of their bodies. Maya, on the other hand, doesn't have a chip, but she does work with computers. So she uses this cube to access a computer. So if people buy through my website, they'll get a signed copy and they'll also get a copy of the character art that goes with the book because each of the three books has a character art that matches the character. So this one, it's Cooper. He also is unchipped and he's like welding in his character art, which I want to give a shout out to the artist that did the character art. Her name is Heather Friedel, and she did an amazing job on them. I really love them. And then in the first book, you have Mariella. That's her
Mhm.
character art.
With her butterfly dress, right?
and her butterfly dress. Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, also that just reminded me, I there's a map in the first book, and I am um have the map for the third book is almost finished, and eventually I'd like to have a map for the second book also.
Do maps help the writer, or do the maps help the reader more?
I think they help the writer, and I think readers like them. I'm not
Mhm.
sure that readers consult them so much ahead of time or even during the book. I feel like, maps are those things where if you like the book, you go back and you look at the map later and look at how it's laid out.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've got maps for like the Dragon Rider of Pern series. There was like a book that did maps. Anne McCaffrey. Um, I Token, Middle
Yeah.
Earth, there's maps everywhere. And Game of Thrones. There are maps of Westeros, and there's one that like folds out that's like huge.
Oh yeah. Mine
Mhm.
mine don't have that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The next series.
Maybe in the future.
Yes.
Um, and then that's another thing too, in terms of like what to do in the future in terms of expanding access to it. People ask me for audiobooks. Like some people say, it sounds really interesting, but I only listen to audiobooks. That might be a possibility for the future. And another thing I like to do is get them translated into Spanish.
Oh, that would be good.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'll link your website below. But what other social media sites, or can readers find you at?
For social media, I mostly do Instagram.
Hmm.
And oh, there is one more thing I'm working on, Melissa. This
Uh-huh.
relates to you.
Okay.
Um, because I know you like to promote book clubs.
Hmm.
I am working on a set of book club questions. I'm working
Oh,
on the
excellent.
first book right now, but eventually I'd like to get the second and third book as well. So a lot of the questions that apply to the first book also apply to the second and third. So I guess you could just read all the way through it and then just start with the questions. But it's fun because there are so many. Even though I think that the plot is fun and exciting, in the background there's all these kind of ethical questions like around technology and how we use technology and how maybe how we hide from technology and things like that that I think are really interesting. And so like one of the questions I came up with was, will humans create sentient artificial intelligence without meaning to? So there's one character in my book. She's an artificially intelligent. She's a young child that somebody who lives all their time in the metaverse created to be their daughter. And then this character has really wants to be human and keeps taking on more and more human characteristics to the end. By the time you get to the end, I really feel like she is sentient. But I also started to have this feeling of like this will happen even if we don't mean for it to, because as we create characters in our digital worlds that are more and more human, then they will start displaying more and more sentient characteristics. Of course, what is sentience, or how do you know something sentient, is one of the book club questions too. But related to that, another question is, if you could create an artificial intelligence to keep you company, would you? And would you need the artificial intelligence to act like a human, or would you want maybe like a dog or a pet or something like that?
Oh, those are great questions. Are you going to put them in the versions of your books, or if you do
I think
another
I
printing?
probably will. It'll
Mhm.
be at the end. Some of them are a little bit spoilery, so I'm going to set those aside. Separate section. You don't read these questions until you read the book.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, I thought I would, and I once I get them written up, like if people buy the book from my website, I'll also just print up a copy and stick it in the book. Um, and oh, one more question: if you could spend all your time in virtual reality, would you?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, yeah, I think there's some really interesting questions here. Like
Mhm.
I think I would like to be a fly on the wall of any book club that's discussing these because I think there's some really thought provoking.
Definitely, definitely. Here's one for you. Would the wildlife and the whales come back if at if all technology went away, would the whales come back?
There are no whales.
Dang, I'm still trying to get the whales into your books. One day, one day.
Good luck. Good luck on that. For you, Melissa, to write your book, and then you can
Oh,
put whales.
that's true. That's true. I will. That's on the list. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today and talk about your three books. We've got book one. No, wait, that's book three. All right, here we go. Book one.
Let me show you. Let me show the good cover too.
Okay. Woohoo. All right, so that was book one. Here's book two. Nice. And book three.
Three. Just
What's
released.
Do you see all the tabs that I have?
I
These
do.
were questions.
Okay. Um,
Thank you so much. And I will post all the links below. And also a link to our first interview that we did back when book one, book two were out. So, and that has a lot more questions and more information.
yep. Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.